It's it's the Italian Chef, sponsored by Sprite. Is that Sprite?
So,
Fuck, dude.
I'm going down the metro with my girl, right? And you know what these guys say? They say, you look like the Italian chef. And you know what I say? I look back at them, I look back at these fools, and I say, I cook the pizza! Right? I cook the pizza, lasagna. I watched a movie too. So the first thing we'll be talking about today is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. Right off the bat, let me say I am a slasher fan and I've seen a lot of slasher movies. So going into a slasher movie, I feel like I have a bit more of a bit more high tolerance for stupid bullshit than a lot of people. And if you have a low tolerance for stupid bullshit, then you probably won't like this because there's a lot of stupid bullshit in this. This is a dumb, stupid mess of a movie, but that I enjoy it nonetheless. Let me go with the good things right away. This movie looks amazing. Like, this movie is really well shot. Like, it's kind of jarring, the dissonance between how well this movie is shot and how kind of shitty it is. There's some great shots in this. I'm thinking especially the van scene, which takes place in a field of dead sunflowers. Just looks amazing. There's just a bunch of really good looking scenes in this. It's got a lot of fun kills. A lot of the kills in this movie on my initial watching made me laugh out loud because the movie feels really grounded until suddenly Leatherface fucking throws a hammer all like for 10 feet down the stairwell, hits someone, no scope. They go flying and hit, and they don't just hit the ground, they crash through the ground. It's fucking amazing. And then there's some specific scenes that I thought were really good. I think the scene in the van in the sunflower field, which I already mentioned, is legitimately really well done. I think it's a great scene of horror. It's kind of scary. It does a good job of building tension. And then the bus scene as well, just because it is so over the top and ridiculous that I ended up it was really fun and I laughed a lot during it. And then the bad things, which is mostly everything else. All the characters in this movie suck. The main character is supposed to have this kind of deal with, like, she is like a survivor of a school shooting, but like it never leads anywhere, and it doesn't feel like it really had a point other than the movie kind of somewhat attempting to be relevant to current age discourse. But yeah, it was pretty fucking stupid. Sally returns from the first movie, and she's completely pointless, but it almost feels like her inclusion here is like satirical. Like she is handled so bafflingly that it feels purposeful. All Sally does in this movie is show up, fail to kill Leatherface, and then get fucking chainsawed through the chest and literally thrown in the garbage. But bizarrely, she's also the only character with any semblance of an arc. Because she is kind of forced to realize that her obsession with Leatherface is not mutual. Leatherface does not give a fuck about her. He doesn't even remember who she is. And so she's kind of forced to deal with the fact that she's like, oh god, I've wasted my fucking life. So it's kind of bizarre that she is the most pointless character, but also possibly the most well-written character and interesting character. The set design is really weird in this movie. I don't normally talk about that kind of thing, but like the whole movie basically takes place in like the same town block. Like they don't even show any of the town outside of this like single downtown block. So it just feels like almost like a play. Like the whole movie takes place in the same set. So it's really weird. It makes the film feel kind of repetitive, just because it's like it feels like we're sort of cycling through the same 3 or 4 locations over and over again. And then some other miscellaneous things. I found it interesting that this movie has such a lack of reverence for what's come before it. That's kind of the problem with like Halloween Kills and a lot of other kind of quote unquote legacy sequels that we've seen come out in the past few years, is they have such a reverence for everything in the original. Like they're worshiping every little detail of the original. But this movie does not give a fuck about anything that came before it in this franchise. It's supposed to be like a Halloween 2018 treatment where it's a direct sequel to the original, ignoring everything else in the franchise. But to be quite honest, you could just make this canon with everything else in the franchise and it wouldn't make a difference. This movie doesn't give a fuck. It's just its own thing, and it's kind of refreshing in that way. It has such a weird dichotomy of good and bad that it kind of falls into that camp territory. And honestly, it kind of reminds me of 80s exploitation slashers, like Final Exam. Movies that are just pure exploitation and were made for nothing else. They were made for nothing else but making money, but there's a couple people on the crew who are really passionate about this project. And so you have this really strange dichotomy where it's like, oh, that I can tell that had a lot of work and a care put into it, but overall, this is a very obviously purely commercial product. I think that it's enjoyable overall. I think the people who are calling this the worst movie ever made need to watch more movies. I wouldn't recommend it if you're not like a genre fan. If you don't like slashers, this is not going to change your mind. But I think that if you've got a bunch of friends and you want to get drunk and watch something, I think that this might be worth it because I liked it. I think it's enjoyable overall, despite it being a mess. It's a mess, but it's a fun mess. So overall, I'm going to give Texas Chainsaw Massacre a 5 out of 10. And the next movie we're going to talk about is the big one, The Batman. So let me say right off the bat, I had zero expectations going into this. I was not excited for it. I actually wasn't even going to see it in theaters until I saw a bunch of people talking about it and I decided to go see it in the theater. But I was pleasantly surprised because I actually quite liked this movie. It was really well shot. It's very dark, but I never thought it was too dark. A lot of people, I've seen people complain that, but honestly, it was never an issue for me in the theater or when I was rewatching it on HBO Max. It's got really good performances, basically all across the board. Robert Pattinson does a great job. Zoe Kravitz is good. Colin Farrell does a fantastic job as the Penguin, even though he's not really in the movie too much. Paul Dano is a little bit over the top. I wasn't so sure about him at first, but on the rewatch, I didn't mind him. The characters are well written. They actually have arcs. Batman has an actual arc in this movie, which is kind of rare. Like, it feels like he's actually learned something and changed as a person by the end. There's a consistent tone. The movie is very dark and brooding, but it's never overwhelmingly so that it becomes like depressing. And this is one of the first movies where I really bought into Batman being this kind of fucked up, edgy, kind of mentally ill dude. Like, he feels like he's fucked up in this movie. Like, he's got issues. He's got issues that, you know, outside of just like, I need to catch the Riddler. Like, personally, he's got fucking issues. And it's overall fairly well paced for a 3-hour movie, except for the last hour. The last hour was a little bit, it dragged a bit. At the part where they found the Riddler's location, no spoilers, I thought that the movie was heading to its climax, but there was still another hour. And it's a superhero movie that actually has personality, which is rare for superhero movies nowadays. The bad things, like I said before, it's a little too long. It really did not need to be 3 hours. You could cut down on some things and have it be closer to 2.5. The main things are Catwoman's plotline. Catwoman's plotline, I didn't dislike Catwoman. I thought she was good in the movie. I liked her chemistry with Batman, but she felt her plotline just felt like it didn't really have anything to do with the main plot. It didn't really achieve much. And then also the scene with the Riddler and his friend was stupid and dumb and was nothing but sequel bait and could have been cut and nothing of value would have been lost. And then the action isn't the greatest. It's not bad. There's some good ones, mainly the car chase. The car chase is pretty fucking awesome. But there's just some action that just feels lackluster. But it's fine because that's not really the point. This isn't the Dark Knight. The action is not the point of the movie. The point is more the mystery. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this, you can't help but compare this to other Batman movies. Like The Dark Knight, even though I think this is going for a completely different thing than The Dark Knight. I think The Dark Knight's better than this. but I like this about as much as I liked Tim Burton's original Batman, 1989. And it's also, you can compare this to David Fincher movies. It's very similar to stuff like Zodiac, and Seven was an obvious inspiration for Matt Reeves, and it works. And so yeah, I think there's not much to complain with overall other than the length. And I'm excited to see what Matt Reeves does next with this character and this world that he's built. And yeah, I'm actually invested for once to see what they do next with the superhero franchise. So yeah, I would recommend The Batman if you have a free day to sit in front of your TV or a movie theater. And I'm gonna give The Batman an 8 out of 10. The next movie I'm going to talk about actually came out last year, and I tried to talk about current releases on this, but fuck it. Fuck you. The next movie is Antlers. So this is a movie that I actually was kind of interested in and wanted to go see in theaters, but to be quite honest with you, it came out with like literally no fanfare, just zero advertising, and so I just didn't even know it came out. Honestly, I kind of just forgot about it until it came out on HBO Max and I decided to watch it. This is a movie based on a short story that I read and that I quite enjoyed. It's produced by Guillermo del Toro, so that kind of tells you what kind of project it is. It is about a teacher in a small mining town who basically becomes interested in a young boy in her class who seems to be having family issues, but the family issues kind of, she discovers, are more of the supernatural kind. So the good things right away, this is a beautiful movie. This movie looks amazing. This movie was shot on location in a small mining town, and I think like South Dakota or North Dakota or something like that, and it is beautiful. You got these giant mountains in the background of like the downtown, you know, all of these like abandoned mining buildings in the mountains. It's a beautiful movie. It's a beautiful location. The opening scene is fantastic. It was really tense, and it was very scary. It was pretty scary. The whole first act I quite enjoyed. When you don't really know what's going on, you don't quite understand the mystery. That's when the movie's at its best. It's just incredibly atmospheric and very well done on that. Like this is a movie that feels like it's set out to be a movie that is primarily, the horror comes from the atmosphere, like an old 80s project, and it really, really succeeds in that. I appreciate that there's really no like kind of jump scares in this. The scares come from tension. They're all tension-based scares, and you knowing that there's something fucking creepy gonna happen, but you don't know when. So I appreciate that. Bad things is that honestly, it's just kind of boring. After that first act, when we kind of discover what the mystery is, the movie doesn't really feel like it has a reason to continue. It's slow, and I just sort of lost interest over time, and by the time we got to the climax of the movie, and the last movie we're going to talk about is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. So right off the bat, I can't say much about this movie because this is a movie, I think, where the less you know going in, the better. The basic plot is that there is a Chinese woman, a Chinese immigrant, she has a lot of family issues with her daughter and her aging dad, as well as her husband, and they go in to do their taxes and a crazy adventure happens. Very sci-fi action adventure. Right off the bat, this is a great movie. The performances are incredible, mainly Ke Huy Quan, I might be mispronouncing that, I'm sorry, who plays the husband. He is fucking amazing. I'm not joking. He is the best character in the movie, and his performance is Oscar worthy. It's absolutely incredible. He's so fucking good in this movie, and he switches gears really, really well between being this kind of timid little guy to being this really charismatic action star. He's so fucking good. The last act legitimately made me tear up a couple times. I wasn't fully on board with the movie in the first half, but by the second half, I was fully on board. It's unapologetically weird. It's just it's got a lot of bizarre things in it, and I just like that this movie is so unabashedly weird and creative. and it's got good action. There's some fantastic action sequences in this movie. A few bad things is that the first half is a little bit up and down. It's got a lot of exposition and setup just because there's so many things in the movies that needs to be explained in terms of like sci-fi concept. And sometimes the movie was very funny overall. It had got a lot of genuine laughs out of me, but there were a couple jokes that just felt a little bit like they were just kind of being random for random's sake. It's not enough to ruin the movie. There's only a couple scenes. There's one scene in particular, and you probably know what scene I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. And it just felt a little bit much, but it didn't ruin the movie for me overall, and it was the minority for sure. If you have a movie that can make me as equally invested and interested when you have a crazy action scene with someone beating people up with a fanny pack full of rocks, and a scene where it's just two people arguing in a parking lot, you know you got something special on your hands. So I would highly recommend this movie, and I'm gonna give Everything, Everywhere, All at Once a 9 out of 10. And that's it. I meant to get this video out last month, but then I wanted to wait to see Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I wanted to wait until The Batman was out on HBO Max so I could rewatch it. So yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, as per usual, I'm Teddy. Go fuck yourself, and let me give you a little kiss. Your lips are like really dry. Have you tried chapstick?